Here's a quote from the Cro-Magnon Derez cited. Biologists need not resort to quantum mechanics to understand that deterministic behavior can never be evolutionarily stable. Evolution is a competitive business, and predictability is one thing that will make sure that a competitor will be out of business soon. I barely even had to think to notice the problems with this. Most life is incapable of prediction.
I had to ask Andrew exactly what he meant by this. He told me that he meant that most life does not have the intelligence to predict behavior. However, Andrew himself admitted that this objection is problematic, since, as he said, Brembs is not necessarily claiming that, though. He could mean that an organism is going to have an easier time evolving to take advantage of another because the other behaves so consistently.
He fails to realize that all life forms would have this same disadvantage. Being predictable may not put a competitor out of business if its competition is also predictable.
I see two problems here. The first is that even if neither one of the competitors has an advantage over the other, that would only mean that they now all have a disadvantageous trait. So if they're all screwed, then how exactly does that help your case? To use an example, let's say I have some bug spray which kills termites. If the termite has a trait X, it will be vulnerable to the bug spray. If the termite has trait Y, then it will be resistant to the bug spray. So if I use the bug spray against the termites with the X trait will die out, while the termites with the Y trait will survive and reproduce. So it's clear that having an X trait will put a competitor out of business. But now let's say all of the termites have the X trait. Great. Now no termite will have an advantage over the other. But as you'll probably notice, they're now all vulnerable to the bug spray. See the problem yet? None of the termites are going to survive and reproduce if I use the bug spray on them. Another problem with your objection is that you give no reason as to why every organism would wind up behaving predictably. If universal determinism is true, then yes, every organism would behave deterministically. But the question is, over the course of evolution, is it more likely that a species will wind up deterministic or more likely that a species will wind up indeterministic? As evolution takes place, there are going to be mutations. There's no reason why an organism cannot end up with a mutation that would allow it to behave unpredictably when faced with a predator. Once that mutation has taken place, the organism with the mutation will indeed have a survival advantage over the organism that behaves predictably. It will be more likely to survive and reproduce, and as such, the species of that organism would most likely wind up being indeterministic, or at the very least, unpredictable.
You getting this, man?
I'm getting it, bro.
Stop fucking up,
I'm not fucking
okay? This is very important.
Something can be determined and still be extremely difficult to predict.
That's true, but as I mentioned earlier, the science can go into an inductive argument for free will. Furthermore, Brembs does present evidence of spontaneous variability in the responses of several organisms. Unpredictable responses may not disprove determinism, but one of the predictions libertarian free will makes is that there will be some unpredictability in your responses. Now before I close, there's one last thing I want to address that I think is relevant to what you were alluding to earlier in your video.
Lastly, even if you got to choose which desire to act on, there is still a huge problem. You don't get to choose your desires. This means that if my torn decision happens to be between homicide or rape, I have to commit one of those acts. I just get to pick which one. So this is a shit model of free will for moral accountability.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I and the overwhelming majority of my fellow human beings don't live in a world where our only ethical desires are to in some way attack and behave immorally towards others whom we dislike. But perhaps you do live in such a world, Ander. You've made enough mistakes in one video to warrant a parody page of yourself.
They call me loony tune. I don't listen to them haters, them other goons. They don't get it, they gotta come and doom. That's why I'm praising the one that beat the tune. Yeah, they call me crazy, loco, but I won't stop now. Man, that's a no-go. I caught the spirit like a free throw, so now my flow tight. Speedo, ask your brother, you see he know. Ask your sister, and yeah, she know. They know and we know. We made the devil zero. I was lost, but now I'm found.